I call Craig Foss.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Pleasure to speak to the Taxation, International Investment and Remedial Matters Bill. First reading speech. And found some more Twitter followers over there, obviously. Mr Speaker, I am the third speaker on this one, but I do acknowledge previous two speakers. Yes, this bill will get sent to FEC, I'm sure, but the issues that the previous speaker raised, of course, deserve a lot of attention as to FEC committee working through some of the key changes in this bill. There's not too many. There's a lot of remedial matters, but there are some. And I think we obviously will give it fair due, and the sector will submit on it as normal, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, but it must be seen as part of a journey, if you want, this bill. And much of that journey actually started under the previous administration, to be fair. These changes, the foreign investment fund changes, the pies, the tidy-ups, the fix-ups, the clarifications, the widenings, they actually all reference back previous tax changes that came mostly under the previous administration, Mr Speaker. So I do welcome the magnifying glass that the members of the opposition have said that they'll be putting over this bill to make sure it's in tune with where those original bills started out, I suppose, and some of the issues that have arisen after they've been in since, particularly the foreign investment stuff, VIF stuff, Mr Speaker, since about 2007, I think, which brought the 5%, the rate of return, the not quite the risk-free rate of return, but all those changes around the grey list and the Aussie-listed companies are not, and Aussie being essentially the one grey list, and all those kind of things. To be fair to the sector, that's made a huge change, and there's been quite a large impost of administration and compliance around those, and I'm glad to see that that's acknowledged in the lead-up to this bill, and the very good commentary, which is about 100 and something pages, 80-something pages, which does go on to explain many of the key aspects of it, Mr Bill. So, as I note, it does build on and extends on earlier, particularly the international tax reforms and around passive active income, what might be interest, what might be related to the ongoing activity of wherever the business is. The whole mission here is to create and encourage an environment where New Zealand companies who are doing well, maybe doing well around the globe, actually feel comfortable that they can stay tax resident in New Zealand for particularly those earnings that would apply under New Zealand taxation law, but not to put them in a disadvantage in some other jurisdiction, which may have slightly different tax arrangements to ourselves. At the end of the day, New Zealand won't change tax law in other countries, but we can acknowledge the differences in the various tax treaties we have. But this is to put New Zealand Inc. on a fair playing field with other entities, because there is a sad track record of New Zealand companies moving over offshore, basically chasing capital to get closer to the capital they require to grow, Mr Speaker. So this bill starts to address that alongside other changes that have come through in 2007, and particularly the large tax bill we saw in 2008, I think it was, and then a recent bill which again clarified a lot of the issues. Mr Speaker, I just want to particularly concentrate on one thing, because I think it might get the attention of some. And I'm looking forward to discussing this particular part at FEC, because this is around the zero rating of AIL on bonds, which is approved issuer levy on bonds. And the monetary policy inquiry that began under the previous administration in FEC and was delivered, I think, September, just before the election, 2008. 08, yeah, that's right. And 08 actually spent a bit of time on this issue, because at a headline, everyone would often think, well, those that are issuing bonds into New Zealand should be subject to the same tax rates, the same interest rates, the same resident withholding tax, etc., as New Zealanders. Actually, as others. Now, in one sense, yes, that's fair enough, but actually if you tunnel down into this, actually the issues in and around it, and I'll touch on some of the caveats around that, at the end of the day, this makes the interest rates which New Zealanders pay higher than they need be, because the offshore investor is issuing into New Zealand, they're asking for some return, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%, whatever it might be, let's just use 10%, and if the approved issuer levies 2 points, 20 points, or whatever it might be, that gets added on. And the end borrower in New Zealand, therefore, is facing 10.2%, Mr Speaker, as opposed to 10%. And that must be seen in the context of where New Zealand's at. We are a debtor nation, unfortunately, and there are many issues. I think we all acknowledge the savings or lack of savings issues. but the reflection of that, we're a debtor nation, so actually we need to welcome foreign capital, at the moment at least, to help get us through this current situation, to maybe put our economy on a better footing, to allow us to maybe become a creditor nation and start to deliver on some of the wants of this new millennium. I do just want to touch on just some of the caveats because they're very tight, but I do see this one particularly getting the wrong first cut or one-dimension analysis, if you want. The approved issuer levy will be at 0%. Issuers will still have to file a return on the 20th of every month to make sure they still qualify, but it will be rated at 0. But here's just some of the caveats, Mr. Speaker. I just want to quickly touch on them, just to allay any fears that there's something untoward going on. The key features of the changes to the approved issue levy, that the security, it's debt by the way, the security is denominated in New Zealand dollars, that the security was offered to the public for the purposes of the Security Act 1978, so there's another catch, that the security was not issued as a private placement, so there's nothing untoward going on with some dodgy partnerships or something like that the security is not an asset-backed security, so there's not some double leverage out of New Zealand, some equities and funding something offshore, that the registry and the paying agent activities for the security are conducted through one or more fixed establishments in New Zealand, i.e. it stays within these borders, Mr. Speaker, and that the security is listed on an exchange registered under the Securities Market Act 1988, such as the NZDX, their debt registrar, or satisfied a wisely held test, because we don't quite know what might develop as far as exchanges are in the future. So I particularly wanted to concentrate on that in my few minutes, Mr. Speaker, because the amounts involved here are huge. At the end of the day, the $180-odd billion, $200 billion that New Zealand owes offshore all came through vehicles such as this, the various Euro Kiwis, or the various issuance out of Japan, etc. So this is essentially remedial, making it cleaner, making it better, recognition of where New Zealand's at in the world, its place in the world, tying up with all the other tax agreements New Zealand has signed to help New Zealand at least, yes, regardless of if we acknowledge we have to borrow the capital or not, we do, but at least trying to make it as cheaper and as crisp as possible for New Zealand Inc. as it tries to fund, as we try to fund our way and build our way out of the current economic quagmire we're in, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I look forward to discussing this bill further at Finance and Expenditure Committee if the House so wishes.
Just getting out. I call Stuart Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good call.
I rise to take a first reading call in support of the Taxation, International Investment and Remedial Matter Bill 2010. But before I do, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to challenge the Minister who brought this bill to the House to show me the clauses that talk about payroll giving, that talk about associated persons, that talk about insurance companies, all these sort of matters that he brought to the House in his first speech. I wouldn't mind knowing where the clauses are. But I know what, you all know what, everyone in this House knows that there are no such clauses because the Minister gave the wrong speech. But we all know that Jonathan won't have written that speech. This isn't Jonathan's area. Jonathan was the Minister in the House at the time and he was told, here is the speech on the bill you've got to introduce. Someone on that